Yes, we are live. Yes. So hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Claudia and I am a co-organizer of Testinui. Before starting, if you have any comment, yes. If you have any comment about what Mike will present, please write them in the live comment panel. We will review them at the end of the presentation. We are excited to have Mike today as our special guest. This is the first time that Mike joined us in Testinui as speaker, and so we are really happy to have him today. So welcome, Mike, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And please feel free to start your presentation. I will remove myself and let you start. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right. Thank you so much, Claudia. And thank you everyone for being here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Got one of my favorite presentations that I've done a few places and I've modified it along the way. So I want to share with you some thoughts, ideas, and gather your questions. I love to interact with you, and we're going to talk today about testing is not a 9-to-5 job. A little bit about me. First of all, if you're on social media, I love connecting with people. I love meeting new people, interacting with people in the testing community and in the IT community out there. So you can go to mikewlyles.com. All of my sites are there, and you can see all of my social media sites. Connect with me, reach out to me. If you're not on Twitter, it's one of the favorite places that I like to interact with people. So get on Twitter if you're not there, follow me, and we'll talk about how you can get some new connections there as well. I've got about 26 years now. Every year it kind of grows on me, but I got about 26 years in IT. Started out as a developer, went through PMO, got into testing, and really fell in love with testing. So it's really been something that I've done a lot. As you look here, I've worked in a lot of places and a lot of space around the testing world. I've started new testing teams. The current company I'm working with did not have a QA organization or a testing team when I joined, and we started the test team, and now we have 10 people on the team. So it's growing, and I love doing that. I love interacting with new people and getting new people into testing or bringing them on the team and sharing our ideas of the way we do things within our organizations. The last thing I'll tell you is I've got a book called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster. I worked on this for many years, started thinking about it in 2002 and released it in November of last year. And it's a self-help motivational book. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't read it or seen it out there, it's online everywhere. You can get it in paperback, but if you want to get it in ebook, it's only 99 cents right now. So it's a great time to buy before the prices go back up. So one of the things I always strive to do is be a motivational speaker someday. And I've been doing a lot of talks at conferences over the many years I've been doing that. But when I think about being a motivational tester, what does that mean? And I thought, what if we had books that were motivational for testers? And, we would rename John Maxwell's book, The 360-Degree Leader, to The 360-Degree Tester. Stephen Covey's great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, would become The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Testers. And Good to Great, of course, would become Good to Break. Start with Why by Simon Sinek would become Start with Why Not. And The 1 Minute Manager will become The 1 Minute Tester. And then a favorite book of mine, Never Wrestle with a Pig. I don't think we need to change the title of that. We know how things are in our day-to-day job. So now one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, you may be somebody who's hiring testers, and you may be asking yourself, what do I do? What do I look for with testers, and what kind of things do I need to look for in qualities of testers? Or you may be looking for a job, and you may be trying to figure out how you can make yourself marketable and really make yourself somebody that people want to hire. And we're going to talk about some of those things today that really makes you stand out among the rest of the people that are out there and the candidates that you'll meet. Now, if we were all together and all in the same room, I would ask you to raise your hand if you love your job. And I always joke that if you don't love your job, just kind of wink at me. But, I hope that you do love your job. And sometimes there are struggles, and sometimes we say we don't like our job, we need a new job. But for the most part, I think as testers, you have to really love your job to be a tester, because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of planning and skill planning for what you do. So then I would ask you to raise your hand if you want to get better. And if you're raising your hand right now, this talk is for you, because one of the things we want to talk about is what are some of the things you can do outside of your day-to-day job, outside of the things you do every single day. What are some of the things you can do to be better and grow and be a better tester, and to make yourself more marketable out there in the community? If you don't know this guy, you've been in a cave somewhere for many years. But Michael Phelps won more gold medals than anybody in Olympic history. And, he had a quote that said, "I always thought it would be neat to make the Olympic team." And all he wanted to do was be on the team. But what we saw was his greatness in the Olympics and how great that he was as an Olympic swimmer. But what we didn't see was all the months and years of preparation in the pool that he did, and in the gym, and his diet and his regimen, and what things he was doing to prepare himself for those few weeks and few months that we get to see him do his job, so to speak, and be great. And that got me thinking, is the reason I created this talk was being great in your job requires you to do some extra things that's beyond just punching in at work, working 8, 9 hours, 10 hours, and then going home. You can do it, but what are some of the things you can do to get better? So this is a picture of my dad, me standing, and my brother, my younger brother. And I always like to show this picture of my dad because he was a factory worker. He worked in a factory for probably 3 decades, and he was amazing. And he was a factory worker. And this is not a story about factory workers, or if your parents or your family or your relatives or friends are working in a factory. It's nothing about that, because my dad worked really hard and he provided for us. But my dad didn't come home every day and study for how do I be a factory worker. He didn't study for what do I do to improve and to get better at my job. Now, he did take training and he learned new skills and new machinery and new things in his job, but our job is different. And our skill sets require us to stay up to date and stay in touch with what's happening with technology. And to be great testers, we have to be willing to take those steps to learn new things and to continue to improve. You look back 10, 20, 30 years ago, many years ago, we did testing a different way, and it's evolving every day. So we have to learn to be able to change and to grow when it does. So when I talk about a 9-to-5 tester versus a world-class tester, and I just set those two together. And when I talk about those, when I look at 9-to-5, that's somebody that's testing at work, they're testing in the office only, versus somebody's who world-class. When I think of world-class testers, very professional testers, you're testing everything you see, everywhere you go. And it's for that reason that when I buy a new car, if I test drive a car, nobody that are around me wants to go test drive a new car with me, because I test everything. I drive the car dealers crazy because I want to try out everything, from the radio to the controls to the seats to the driving and the brakes and the gas and everything. I test everything. I test TVs, I test controllers, I test computers, I test anything that I've got, I try to test it out. 9-to-5, they don't study testing outside of work. And your world-class tester studies testing, attends webinars, reads blogs and articles. Every one of you are here right now because you're doing something outside of your day-to-day job. And that's commendable, because you want to learn and you want to learn from people in the community. Same with 9-to-5, not involved in the testing community. Their learning is limited to work, versus someone like yourself who's getting out there into the community, listening to other people, learning from mentors and peers and people who have really been there before, and have got that experience that they can share with you. Here's something that happened to me, and here's how I dealt with it. Now, I used to say that you may never know what you're capable of until you surround yourself with other great testers. And it used to be testers. But in today's world, with agile DevOps, the fast sprints that we have weekly, bi-weekly, you have to surround yourself with great people. And success in your role as a tester or being a tester really depends on how well you interact with the whole team and everybody and every role around the testing role that you have. Now, I get a lot of comments and feedback when I do this presentation, especially from people that don't attend the presentation and see comments about it, or they see slides or different things that I've shared in this presentation. And they say, I'm not going to work 70 or 80 hours a week, but this is not about being a workaholic. Being testing 9 to 5 versus world-class tester has nothing to do with how many hours you work or how much time you put in after work. It's really, what are you focusing on? What's important? What are your priorities? And what kind of things are you doing to prepare yourself to grow and to learn more along the way? Now, when I ask you, did you start your career as a tester? I've asked this many times at many events and many conferences, and I get so many different feedbacks. And you think a lot of times it's usually someone may have been a developer before they became a tester, but I've heard people who were truck drivers and doctors and work in psychiatry, which I think is a great thing to have to be a tester, or other professions. And I think what we learn as testers is we're users, and we learn more about the business regardless of what role we had. The more we can learn about the product and the things that we're supporting and testing, the better we are. I didn't start as a tester. I started out in 6th grade. I got my computer science certificate on an Apple IIe computer. And if you don't know what an Apple IIe computer is, you're nowhere near my age. But so many people learn many things through the years. And I got into development. And one of the things I'll say to you is this: we all started out as testers. That's the trick question here. Because when anyone that has children knows that children, they don't need a script. They don't need test cases. They'll test anything. There's a reason we put locks on the doors, the drawers. We put fences in front of our stairways, and we keep our kids away from things because when they're very young, they're very exploratory. And I have a talk called Testing Like a Kid, which really talks about that as well, because we learn a lot through the years, and we can learn a lot by staying young and not getting caught up into routines within our testing that keeps us from really exploring the application and understanding what the product is doing. Now, as I said before, I've got a book called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster, but it's also a theory that I have. And that is, if you've ever done this, I know in America, I've done it a lot, and I used to drive through and I would sit there and I would watch people go in, order their food, get their food, and leave. And I'm still in line. So I started making sure that I no longer sit in the drive-thru. I pull in, I go get my food, I come out, and I leave. And I watch the cars that were sitting there, still sitting there. And it made me think about how that many times we get so caught up in doing the same routine, doing same things the same way, and not giving ourselves the opportunity to think of an alternative solution. Now, I showed my book one time to someone in a drive-thru window, and they said, well, it may not be faster, but it is convenient. And it's true. It is true that it's convenient. You don't have to get out of your car. You don't have to go in. But we can't be testers for convenience. Don't take the easy way. Sometimes there's a better and faster, more efficient way to do things. Now, thanks to COVID, neither my theory or my book are doing too well right now, because currently the drive-thru is the only way to get food at restaurants in America right now. Now, you might be saying, Mike, I work for a company that says we've always done it this way. And that is a lot of what you'll hear is a lot of companies will say, well, we like your ideas. We like the way you're thinking about being more exploratory or context driven or creative ways to go outside the standard traditional ways of testing. But I'll say this, there are worse things than we've always done it this way, and that is everybody is doing it this way. And don't just do it because everybody's doing it this way. You don't have to follow the script. You don't have to follow the same process. Some of the most greatest and innovative leaders thought outside the box, and they changed the world because of it. Now, I'll tell you this, that a good way to learn to deal with something is to listen to those that have already been through it themselves. And I know it sounds contradictory to what I just said, saying don't listen and be different. But then I think one of the things I want to share with you is that I did a survey, and I did a survey with several hundred people in testing. And I asked them several questions. The first question was, how many hours per week are you spending in meetings? And the interesting response was that 49%, over 49% of those people said that they were in meetings more than 5 hours a week. Over 21% of those said that they're in meetings more than 10 hours a week, which led me to question 2, and that is, how many hours per week are you in requirements or project meetings related to the work that you're doing? And very surprisingly, over 72% said that they were spending less than 5 hours in that, which made me wonder what we're doing at work and how much time we're getting to actually spend with the product. Now, there were 6 people who said they spent more than 20 hours or more. And I'd love to work for that company because it sounds like they're really engaged with the product, engaged with the applications that they're working on. So I think that would be an interesting company to work with. When I started looking at what are the things that you do outside of work that's related to testing, a lot of folks came back and said, okay, I'm reading blogs. That's 87%. 55% said they're on social media, which is great. Again, I'm very narcissistic. So if you are on social media, connect with me. I'll be glad to connect with you. Testing conferences, 41%. Training classes, 41%. It was good feedback from the folks. Testing meetups, 43%. And then reading articles and books on testing was 75%. And crowd testing was almost 20%. And then I learned a valuable lesson with my survey, and that is don't ever give other as an option because people will pick it, especially testers. And we had a lot of people that picked it. So I wanted to know what are your others? So out of those nearly 18% of the people, I asked them, what is the other stuff that you do? And I got great stuff about learning development skills and automation skills, watching videos and podcasts on testing, mentoring face-to-face with other testers, practicing testing on self-made exercises, playing mobile games. Photography was an interesting one, but I did take a photography course and it wasn't easy. So I could understand why you would see that as testing and helping you to learn how to test. Job searching, that was an interesting one. But I think it became a serious one for me because if you are job searching, then you kind of start to notice what people are looking for and what kind of skills people want in the testing community out there and in the companies that are looking for people. Non-testing books and watching videos to find a testing relation. A lot of times if I watch a movie or a TV show where the show takes place decades ago or hundreds of years ago, I'll look for things that may be recent in there that were accidentally left in there. Like the car is not an old car, or you see a cell phone or you see something. I look for things like that. I'm constantly thinking about how could this not be correct, even though I know, it was filmed currently. And then someone said, testing the quality of whiskeys. And I know exactly who said that. His name's Mark Tomlinson. And if you're watching, Mark, I'm pretty sure that was you. And I would also say to you that if you do test the quality of whiskeys, eventually you're going to be very exploratory with your testing because you're going to feel good. Conference numbers are growing. I see a lot of feedback, a lot of folks attending conferences. And thanks to the virus, online conferences are really growing as well. I had the most conferences lined up in 2020. When I got to December of 2019, I was so happy. I had my whole agenda set for the year, and I've attended one in February, and thanks to the virus, I've attended no others since. But I've been very fortunate to speak at several online conferences, virtual events, and more people are going to those conferences now. And it's a perfect time for you. And I would suggest to each of you, take advantage of this time and this lockdown, so that you can take advantage of this time and really go to the conferences. People are outside my door, which is getting in my brain right now. But you can go to the conferences and you can attend these conferences. And a lot of these virtual conferences are free, or at least a really low cost. And it's a great opportunity for you to do this without having to attend the conference, without having to travel and go there, and really still get the same material that folks are sharing. So look out for those. Blogs and articles are out there. And if you're writing a blog or an article today, keep it up. And if you were writing a blog or articles at one time and you've stopped, start it back up. It's a good time. You're at home. You're stuck at home. Start writing about your experiences, because there's people out there that want to hear what you have to say. You'll be very surprised. Now, I ask people, what do you learn when you're testing? How do you learn testing at work? And from learning multiple domains, latest testing methodologies and technologies, learning development practices, customer views of the software, and understanding the business. I know that Michael Bolton was on Ask Me Anything, the AMA with testing UI, a couple of weeks ago or several weeks ago. And I asked him a question, what's the one thing you would say to a new tester? And he said, get familiar with the stakeholders and the product and understand the business. And I think that's a great piece of advice from a great tester and somebody who's very senior in this industry. And I think it's something that I should challenge each of you to do, and each of you to learn the business. And as you learn the product and you test the product, it's more about understanding exactly how things work, how the user is going to use it, how the stakeholders want this product to work, and really asking the question, is there a problem here? Is there the application working correctly? Getting people stated exploratory testing and thinking of new scenarios to test, pair testing. It's a big thing right now to get our developers and our project teams involved with us and understanding how we do testing, so that we can share the love of testing and work with them. And likewise, work back with the developers to understand how they're doing the development. And it becomes a team effort more than just we're there to assure quality, because that's not our job. It's everybody's job to do that. You may be saying, hey, I don't have time to do things after work. I've got kids, I've got family, I've got other obligations. Then have a bag lunch at work whenever we go back to work. But have a bag lunch and a lunch and learn, and share your stories during lunch with other people on your project team. Security testing becoming more important right now than ever, because of a lot of people doing things online, a lot of applications to do video conferencing and teleconferencing from home. So security testing is a big thing with our applications. Training junior and entry-level testers. I love this one because I found that when I teach somebody, I learn from them. And it happens to all of us if we do it. I find that I usually learn more than the person learns from me. And then someone said making testing fun. And I had to read it twice to make sure it didn't say making fun of testing. If they could change one thing, a lot of people talked about process improvement, being more creative in their approach to testing, stopping project teams from minimizing the testing hours. We've all been there. We know how that is. The project is this long, the development takes this long, and then testing gets the last of it. No matter how much delays we have in the start of the project, testing really needs to be done on time to meet the dates. And, people don't want that to change. I mean, they want that to change. Learning coding. A lot of people say, do I need to be technical to be a tester? It's not necessarily a requirement, but it does help you to understand how to explain and express what you're finding if you know the code and you know some things about the code that you're working with, including testers and SDLC. Having a seat at the table is very critical. Mentoring, coaching, meeting the customers, having flexibility in work hours. I think we're seeing some of that now thanks to COVID. Changing the mindset of non-testing teams about the testing importance. And I think that one is a big one because we want to make sure that we talk about the value of what the product is doing and the value of what we're doing as testers and why it's important that we help the product be released on time with good quality, and the whole team works together on that. Testers influencing quality instead of seen as gatekeepers. We're not auditors. We're investigative reporters. And then removing quotas from testing. Please don't count your test cases. I don't care how many you have. I don't care how many scenarios you have, and I don't care what counts you want to share with me. To me, my test team talks about confidence in the product. Our testing dashboard talks about I'm confident or I'm not confident in that product. Now, you can look at bugs and say I've got a dozen high priority or critical defects. That's something to look at, but that also relays back to your confidence. And it doesn't matter how many test cases you've got. It doesn't matter if you have test cases or not. And it doesn't matter what percent you're done with testing, because percent done only tells me progress. It doesn't tell me quality. And remember that as you look at that. And the one big thing that kept coming up with everybody's response in the survey was minimize meetings. You got to get out of those. We got to figure out a way to get better at it or get better at improving those meetings as we do it. Now, no test team ever woke up one day and said, we're going to fail. I mean, we might wake up and say, oh my God, we're going to fail. But we don't typically plan to fail. And it's just not something that's, I didn't get up this morning saying I'm going to fail today. But failure is a part of success. And we can learn from every mistake along the way. We can grow from that. Michael Bolton, he has some great quotes. This is just one of many of his. And he said, as testers, one of our most important jobs is to reveal problems that threaten the value of the product and the on-time successful completion of that product at every level of granularity. I love that because I've said many times, we are investigative reporters. We get wrapped up so many times in how many defects we found or how much we've tested or what progression we've made. But as a tester, you need to be asking questions. You need to be asking tons of questions, understanding the product. And the more you ask, the more answers you're going to get, the more you're going to learn about the product, the more you're going to learn about how it's being used. In my recent job, when I started, the first client meeting I had, I started asking the client, here's the requirements. What do you want? Why do you want this? What is the purpose of this requirement? And they said, I have no idea. It had been a while since they'd created the requirements document. And so when I started asking, what we found is we were able to really streamline the requirements for that project just because I asked questions. If I had not asked those questions, we would have been delivering them things and they would have been happy, probably, but they would have gotten things that they didn't need. And I think as a tester, you need to help the project team to understand, are we working on the right things for the stakeholders? And is it something that they really want? Now, this is my son driving my car, and this was a year ago. He's 17 now. When he turned 16, well, I'll say this. Many people have asked me questions about certification, and getting a testing certification. And I respond with this. My son got his driver's license almost 2 years ago, and I realized something. No matter how well he did in driver's training, no matter how well he passed his test, he would not experience the things that's going to happen to drivers yet. Having a license, like any other training or certification, doesn't make you a better driver. You simply understand and can recite the fundamentals. You know the road signs. You know the rules. But when that car comes at you without headlights, or another one pulls out in front of you, or another car pulls in front of you, into your lane. You have to act in the context of that situation. And if you want to become a great tester, then I'm not going to debate whether or not certifications are right for you or not. I had a certification many, many years ago. But the thing that you want to do is be very exploratory, learn the process. Take these items and take your learnings from testing case by case and learn from them in the context of what you're doing at the time. Now, if we were all together, I would tell you to look under your seat and find a number. And I started to remove this slide because I used it at conferences where people were there with me. But I wanted to share with you what happens. Because when I do this, people start looking under their seat. They believe me. And they take my word that there's a number under the seat and somebody's going to win a prize. And I asked them, why do you believe me? What did I do to gain your confidence? I'm standing on a stage. I'm the presenter for the day. Why do you believe me? They believe me because they understand that they have respect for what I do. And they see me as someone who knows what I'm talking about. And that's why I'm there to speak. And you need to have this sort of trust and respect in your team. And the more you respect, the more respect you gain, the more you're going to learn, the more people will believe you and believe in you. And when you say, I don't feel confident about this product, we shouldn't go ship this to production, you're going to get people believing in you. And it's going to get easier and easier to have that influence in your team. Now, Zig Ziglar was one of my favorite motivational speakers before he passed away. He said, we all have 24-hour days. It's really what you do with it. No one gets more than us or less than us. And after you take away sleep, and after you take away the working hours, a minimum of 9, your time is really about 7 hours in every day. And when you also look at, what's left with your time, it doesn't count for the time you got to go to work or from work before the virus, things you do with your kids, your family, your obligations at home. But it's really about what are you doing with the little time that you have outside of your sleep and your work and your other obligations. What time do you have to really spend on growing and learning? My big distraction was TV. And these are kind of old shows now, but I got hooked on these. And the Game of Thrones killed me. I watched them, and I started late, and I got hooked on it, and I just watched it season after season, just like binge watching it. It's crazy. Ruined a lot of my free time to continue to grow and learn other things other than bending the knee and watching Game of Thrones. But now I'll tell you this, have an opinion. Testers seem to accept things because we feel we don't have the authority. But you can ask questions. And just because you don't have a management title or you don't have an authoritative title doesn't mean you can't have an opinion. Take a stand, but don't make it personal. If people don't agree with you, that's fine. Continue to prove your point. Don't be offensive, but state where you stand in this process and state how you feel about the product and the work that you're doing. Right now is a perfect time. Social distancing is a big term that people are using a lot, but socializing is fine online. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the sites are out there. Watching webinars like this one. This is a great webinar. And again, thanks to Testing UI for having me here, because this is a great way to learn from different people and attend meetups and interact with other people. If you're on Twitter, follow me. And I'll add you to my testing group, my testing list, and there's the link to it right there if you want to go directly to it. But I've got nearly 2,000 2,000 testers on that list right now, and it continues to grow. There's a lot of interaction, and you get to learn a lot from people that are out there. Study the writings of great testing leaders, the websites, the books, and different things that you'll see out there from some really, really good people in the testing community that you can learn things from, and people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. If you go to my blog site, which is MikeLyles.wordpress.com, there is a section there called Testapedia. And within the Testapedia, I have a lot of links 2 sites that I've built through the years. I'm continually updating it. I need to update it right now, literally right now. I need to update it. It always reminds me when I present this. But if you have a website, a blog site, or articles that you have done that you'd like for me to share on that site, reach out to me, send me an email, message me on social media, and I'll be glad to add you to it. But I want to continue to build that because it's a great place to go and find different things that different links to sites where people are talking, testing, and talking about things that are relative to us in the industry. And I say to this, test all the time. There's utest.com. You can volunteer, even if you're not testing and you're not in a and you're in a management role. I'm a director of testing and project management at my company, but I try to test during every week. I try to do something that's related to hands-on because you want to keep that fresh in your mind. It's fun to do it. Which leads me to this question, thinking about testing all the time. If I were to ask you, when I was 4, my sister was 2, I am now 44, how old is my sister? I saw this online, and if you're on Twitter and you don't know Ben Simo, you should, because he is Quality Frog, at Quality Frog. He's amazing. He's funny. I love listening to him and following his tweets. But he had posted this, when I was 4, my sister was 2, I'm now 44. How old is my sister? Question. A programmer would say 42, but a tester would say, and this was a post that he put out there, this is a tough one. She might be 42, but she could be 41 or 43, since you didn't say when your birthday is and her birthday is. Also, she could be dead. Finally, you might have thought she was your sister, but actually your mom had an affair with another man, and the woman who is 1 to 3 years younger than you is not actually your sister, but your mom may have given away your real sister for adoption, in which case she's probably older than you. See why that's tough? Finally, what if you think your sister is dead, but she actually has become an astronaut on a secret government project for near light speed travel? Then your sister would be aging more slowly than you, so she could potentially be even younger than 41. Now, I know you're laughing right now, but I wanted to show you a few more because that Twitter feed got me crazy. I spent way too much time reading them. Ben said, what if the numbers are not ages? Perhaps they're positions in a queue. Perhaps they are apartment numbers. Perhaps they're bowling scores. Perhaps they're Twitter counts. What if the numbers are not even numbers? Perhaps they're names. Someone else said, are we talking about years, months, minutes? If it's minutes, maybe they're twins. If it's months, maybe they're not even related. Same here, talking about years, days, meters. Forgot about the user being dead. Sister could now be older than the user. Your mind's probably working right now. The tester missed the option where you might have 2 sisters. And I love Mick's response, isn't the answer to everything always 42? That's the meaning of life, right? And Ben said, except when it isn't. Then we started getting feedback on Twitter from developers and project managers and people that are non-testers. And I like that. Let's deploy with 42. We'll think about that in the next iteration. Friday is the best day to deploy. No one else is deploying, so your deployments go 100% faster. And if it fails, you know that it was your deployment that caused it. None of these possibilities were mentioned in the statement of work, so this is all scope creep. Project manager would ask the client how old they wanted the sister to be so that the correct acceptance test could be created. And there's an Agile PM with all of these use cases in a backlog with priority, nice to have. And I love this guy. This is why we can't have nice things. Now, if we were all together, I would hand a controller to somebody, a volunteer, a lucky volunteer, by the way. And I would say, test this controller. And as you're thinking right now, how would I test a controller, a remote control for a TV? What are the things you would test? Do you think about things that you would be doing right now? What would you consider? Did you consider everything? Because a lot of people will start talking about the buttons, the on and off, the up and down volume, the up and down channels, and entering in the channel numbers. But did you check to see if there's service on the TV? Are there batteries in the controller? Is the TV even plugged into power? Is this controller not even for this TV? And you're just sitting there trying to get it to work and it's not the right one. So you have to ask yourself these things when you're looking at How do you test products? You have to ask, you can't assume things. Never assume. Always be asking questions and learning more and making sure that there's no assumptions in what you're doing to test. Now, I was in Canada speaking at an event there, and I got in an elevator, and this was a huge sign that says, jumping in the elevator will cause entrapment. I was not about to test that for two reasons. I needed to get to the talk, and I don't know if I'd have been able to handle it if I proved that the test case was true and caused the elevator to entrap me for some periods of time. So you don't have to test everything, certain things. Again, share your story, write articles, write blogs, interact online, speak at meetups, speak at conferences. If you say I don't have anything to say, if you say my friends write a lot and talk a lot, but I don't really know what to say, just write what you did today. Write a blog about what you did at work, what kind of things interest you. There's people out there that want to interact with you and hear about it. And if you're afraid to speak public speaking in person, do it online. There's no fear here. I can't see you. I know no idea whether or not you're enjoying this or not, but I hope you are. All I see is my screen, and it's safe and easy. Now, I asked people, when I did the survey, I asked 267 people, do you have a mentor? And I was so surprised that 91%, 243 people said they did not have a mentor. My challenge to you today is, if you get nothing out of this talk, get yourself a mentor. Have yourself multiple mentors. And it's not about buying a mentor or paying a mentor. There's many people out there in testing. And that's what I love about the testing community is Michael Bolton was one of the first people to just take my advice take my request to talk about metrics and measurement and just spent time with me. And I was nobody. I still am, but I was really nobody back then. And he sat down with me, and I'll never forget that, because there's a lot of great people in the testing profession that are willing to help others. And all you have to do is ask. Find somebody, get started, ask them for help. You'll be surprised how happy it's going to make them when you do that. Ask people, how do they measure their mentoring success, building roadmaps, having the coach give them exercises. Some people said blogs and articles are really my coach. I'm learning from people by doing that, or the testing community. And if you want to see growth in your career, help somebody else grow theirs. We learned that in testing. The best way to help somebody, the best way for you to learn how things work and how processes work and how testing works in your organization is to help other people learn how to do it as well. If you can explain it, you're showing that you're learning it yourself. And I will tell you this, I learned the most about testing since I started going to and speaking at conferences and events in 2011 and beyond than I ever learned before. And, you go up to people and you ask them, why do you do what you do? Watch their reaction. They'll be shocked that you ask them why they do it. But lots of great stories out there about why people love to test and what they like to do when they are testing. Now, I hope you're getting some great ideas from today, and you're going to go back to work tomorrow, and you're going to start work, or you're going to get online and work tomorrow if you're working at home. And maybe somebody's going to say to you, that's great. You know what? That's great. You had fun. Now get back to work. And I think hate's a harsh word here. I almost marked it out. But don't let the negativity drive you. Let the negativity drive you to keep pushing. And if your organization doesn't understand the value of testing, keep showing them what you're doing. Sell yourself. Sell your test team. Show the value of what we're providing to the organization and let it fire you up. If people are pushing back, keep pushing back forward. So what is your 10-year plan? What is your 10-month plan? In fact, what is your 10-day plan? Do you know? Take a long, hard look at what you're doing and ask yourself if you're lining your goals up with what you do every day. Is what you're doing today, tomorrow, next week, is it setting you up to where you want to be? And don't forget that people know you for what you've done, not for what you plan to do. Start now. Take steps forward. I talked about writing a book for years. I started writing that book in 2002. It took me 17 years to get to the point where I felt it was ready. But I did a little bit every year, every month, every week. And I'll tell you this, talking about it's not going to get it done. Don't just talk about testing improvements, put it into action. Look at what you can do. Take your ideas to your team, your bosses, and your leadership team. You'll be surprised if you have an opinion and you share that with people. You'll be surprised how well that gets accepted many times, more than not. And don't forget, I'll leave you with this. I love to leave with this slide. You have the potential to be remembered for all the things you're going to do today, tomorrow, and onward. And you don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg to make a difference. You can change the world right where you are today, doing exactly what you're doing. So my question to you is, what are you doing to be great? And with that, I thank you so much for being here and for listening to me ramble on and on for 45 minutes straight.
Thank you, Mike. It was very inspiring, the presentation, very good recommendations and ideas to improve both ourselves and our teams in order to become great testers. We have some comments and questions, so we have, if you have time. So I will put the first one. How do we change the mindset where people say, oh, look, everyone does this way. For example, everyone use words like manual testing, automation testing. Look at the job requirements.
Oh, Brajesh, I love it. I love this question. And he knows how I feel about this. I will say this. As Michael Bolton has said many times, and I've referred to Michael, if he's online, I'm sorry, Michael, I'll keep referring to you. He and James Bach and a lot of people in Context Driven make the statement, you never hear about manual developers. Testing is the only place that has manual testers and automation testers. But I like to change the term of a manual tester to a thinking tester. There's things we do as testers that is thinking testing. And I think that's important. It's not about manual versus automation. I do think, and the one response on the mindset for automation is, it used to be a good to have thing. It's no longer a good to have thing. I mean, automation is critical to our organizations now. It has to be a part of our job and a part of what we do as testers. And I hope that answered that question. And thank you. So I see awesome talk. Claudia, you can tell me if you want me to just go through them as I get them.
Yeah, I was talking and I was not in the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, he has just replied this. We have another question if you have time.
Okay. Keep them coming.
Yeah, from him. From Aldana. What do you think about manual testing? Is going to continue in the future?
Yes, absolutely, Aldana. And the reason I say this is we can debate all day long whether AI, we've been talking for years about AI is going to take jobs or machine learning is going to take jobs. At the end of the day, you have to have somebody thinking. And even if we write the code or we have AI systems that are doing things for us, at the end of the day, somebody has to think about something. It's hard for a computer to say, this makes me feel good, or this makes me, the color of this screen or this user interface makes me feel this way. AI can do a lot of things, and machine learning can do a lot of things, and automation can do a lot of things. But I think at the end of the day, sometimes it takes a thinking human being to do things. And I think, yes, and the caveat to that question is also, but still continue to learn those new skills. There's a lot of great training opportunities out there, and you say, I'm scared, I'm not a technical person. There's testing university, Test Automation University. Angie Jones drives that, and it's a great way for people to learn new skills in technology and to learn the technical skills of testing. So it's not a requirement, but I would say it's good to have a lot of things in your toolbox, in your tool set as a tester.
Great. We have more questions.
Keep them going.
One related to this one or close to this one. Any suggestion on how to encourage our team to practice testing by themselves beside their work?
Yes, Smita. Thank you so much, Smita. Encouraging our teams to practice testing by themselves. I mean, I think the main thing that you want to do is think of everything testing opportunity. I want people to understand that the better you can become at understanding the problem, what is the real problem here, understanding how the product works, understanding what are the needs, and as Michael said a long time back, understanding the business users, who's going to use this product. It's great that we say this is a system that we've developed in an application that we've developed and we've met all of the requirements, check them off. But have we really tried to help the user, the stakeholder, understand how the product works? And the one thing, and it's a great question. The one thing that I say is that when you're looking at different things outside of work, right, and continually put yourself in a testing mindset, whether you're online doing something, you're using an app and trying to find new ways to break the app. I enjoy breaking apps and then tweeting about it. I enjoy finding problems with applications online, telling the company that their stuff doesn't work. And it doesn't mean you have to go to a training course or even do anything online as far as training or webinars or courses or anything. It's about doing it every day and finding ways to be creative in everything you do. You know, and anything you touch, anything you use, it's an opportunity for you to think, how would I test this application? How would I test this product? Thank you, Smita.
Thank you, Mike. We have another one. We have two more.
Okay.
Yes, this one. Yeah. What is your suggestion to testers on educating non-tester about the value of testing?
Suggestion to testers on educating non-testers about the value of testing. Well, I worked for many organizations through almost 3 decades now, and I've been caught in that situation. You know, I've got a talk that I'm working on soon that's called "Discussions Testers Should No Longer Be Having," and it's around the situation where when you're working for a company and the product breaks and someone asks the question, "How did we miss this in test?" And I start asking, how did we miss it in development? How did we miss it in requirements planning? And how did we miss it all along the way? It's no longer just a testing problem. With the environments that we have, the work we do in Agile and DevOps, and the new methodologies that we have in our organizations, it's no longer just testing, and really it never was just testing's responsibility to have quality in place. But I think the thing that I learned when I had a lot of organizations say, do we really need a testing team? Can't the developers just do this? Can't the users just do this? Can't they do a UAT and do this? The one thing that I started doing to show the value of what we were doing is we didn't say we found 10 defects or we found this product was, you know, we covered this product at a high coverage and we found these many problems. What I would do is put a number to, and this is where you do use numbers, is I'd put a number to the defect that we found. For example, if I'm working for a retailer and I find a defect, then I can start saying, what if that defect causes that customer online to stop shopping at your store or your online retail store? And what if they tell 4 friends? And what if those 4 friends tell 4 friends? And what if the average ticket of every customer that comes to your company is per year is $1,000? And you start numbering, you know, and that number starts getting very exponential very quickly. If you have dissatisfied customers, you can start showing the value of why quality is important, why testing is important to find things before you get to production, and then letting the users, the actual consumers or the users of the application find it. So I think you have to speak about what happens if we don't test. what is the problems that we see if we don't test? And that is the best way to do it. It's like trying to get someone to care about you. Say, hey, you need to care about me. Please care about me. That's not going to happen. But if you show the value of why they should care about you, they will. And I think as testers, you have to show the value of why you're here and what you're doing. And then you'll see people react in the right way.
Thank you, Mike. Our last question is related to this one. It is from Lisandra. What do you think about companies that don't care about the preparation of their testing team or don't prepare them with the training? It's only tester responsibilities, or companies should have part?
A great question, Lysandra. There's an old quote that I like to reference. It's not my quote, but it's one I live by. And that is, HR is not the one looking after your career and your future. And no matter what company you're working for, no matter how great that company is, we got some great companies out there in the world, and we've got a lot of great people that we can work for. And a lot of companies do allow us to do training, but really take it on yourself. All the things that I learned, all the conferences that I've attended, only the very first one in 2011 that I went to in testing was paid for by my company. All the other events that I did was out of my own pocket or my own time. And it's really, you have to ask yourself, as I'm learning these things and I'm taking these opportunities to learn new things, what's it going to do for me? Zig Ziglar, a great motivational speaker, when he was alive, he used to say he had automobile university, because he would listen to books on audio to and from work every day. And so he learned a lot of things in those hours and hours and hours of driving that he just did extra time studying things. So I do think it's great to be in a company that does support testing and training. I think that the one thing that you can do, Lysandra, and everybody here, is if you show that you're learning, it's not just a boondoggle, as they say, the quote boondoggle, where, hey, I'm going to travel to this country or this city or this state and get to be on a vacation. You don't want to be on a vacation. When you go to training, go to conferences, attend webinars, and your company's funding it, make sure you bring back what you've learned. One of the things I always did when I did travel a couple of times, for non-testing events and also the one testing event, is we took notes and we come back and said, okay, we're going to train the other people. And I've allowed other people in companies that I've worked for that work with me to take training, but I've told them, you need to come back and you need to show the rest of the team what you learned. And I think that puts the weight on us to learn those things. But I do think that companies, it's great to work for a company that's doing it. But if they're not doing it for you, it doesn't mean you can't. There's so many great things out there. There's so many great sites, Twitter, LinkedIn, groups on Facebook, groups on LinkedIn. There's so many things that you can learn. This webinar is amazing. I've seen so many great talks here with Testing UI. There's so many great conferences online. You can learn so much from so many people. And there's a lot of people out there that really want to interact with you and you'll learn from them. I've learned, like I said earlier, I've learned from people that are in this community way more than I ever learned about testing before I got into this community. So continue to interact with people and learn.
Thank you, Mike. Really inspire all the presentation and the answers. We have really good comments that I want to share before ending the webinar. So we have great talk. Thank you from Uruguay. We have also thank. This one that we have already seen. Then we have a spectacular talk. Very, very hard to pronounce that in English for me. Thanks. Thanks. It was a great talk. Excellent presentation. Great speaker. Thank you so much. And another one, thank you so much. And you're awesome as always. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. And also, Mike, for your time and sharing your experience with us. Next webinar will be in 2 weeks. We will have a special guest, Francisco Moreno. He's a co-organizer of Northern Quality Community. The webinar will be in Spanish, so hope to see you all next webinar, and keep safe, and thank you again for joining us. Buenas noches. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mike.